Hello fellas, it's me, the Hungarian Horntail, and today I brought you something nostalgic. I'm talking about this fantastic idea I had the other day that it would be fun to play through this classic video game on the hardest difficulty without taking any damage. I was kinda wrong, but whatever, let's do it. After selecting the difficulty, I created my Jaden core, the
pitiful Jedi
I was going to play as with the character creation system to rival that of Cyberpunk 2077. After creating our handsome Jedi lad, we began our journey to become the very best like no one ever was. That was when we met the legend's equivalent of Kylo Ren in being an annoying little prick, Rosh Penin. The game hasn't even started yet and this little was already getting on my nerves. We fortunately crash landed, so I got his ugly ass face out of my aura at least for now. There weren't really any hiccups during this first section of the game. I got through the geckos and the first two stormtroopers without any problems. That's when I came face to face with our first lightsaber wielding maniac. He was a bit intimidating at first, but after a single reset he was taken care of easily. Yeah, slight note here guys, I won't really be delving into the game story, because if you want to know the story, then just play the game. I started the tier 1 missions with Mos Eisley on Tatooine. This level could have been a walk in the park had I chosen it later, with a higher level of Force Lightning, but the idiot I am, I went at it with only level 1. It wasn't that bad though, I only died 23 times, but it was a beautifully terrifying example of things to come later in the game. The funny part was that at this level of the game, my blaster deflection skills were that of an autistic frog, and that combined with the number of gun-wielding enemies on this map created a truly delicious cocktail of rage, pain, and a shit ton of quick save reloads. I know what you think, this cannot be that hard, you can save anytime you want, you don't have to backtrack that much, don't be a mate. And to that, I can only say that you're right. I abuse that quick save button like my cat abuses the cardboard boxes of the toys I buy him, and I'm not even ashamed to admit it. The next mission I chose was on Benjiel, and it went as you would expect. Aside from the little sandworms that will eat you up whole if you stay on the ground for more than a nanosecond, there are no enemies on this level that could cause you any form of damage. I only had to reload once on this map when I accidentally hit the ground too hard while jumping around, causing a bit of fall damage to Jaden. Then came the Tatooine mission with the sand people, and let me tell you something. This map, this was a mind-blowing experience for me, for reasons you guys would probably never guess. The first part of the mission was uneventful. I reloaded once in the caves when I got careless and got smacked on the butt cheeks by one of the Tusken raiders, but aside from that, there weren't any problems, not at least until I reached this room of the Java Sandcrawler later on the level. A little story time here guys. I've completed this game so many times before that I cannot even count, but never in my life was I able to figure out how to get through this room without taking damage, and I was just too stubborn to look it up. So every single time I played this game before, I've just yeeted myself through the hot magma, taking the punishment like a man, or an idiot depending on how you look. Of course, this wasn't an option now, and now comes the funny part, because I shit you not, without looking up on YouTube or anywhere else, only after 5 resets I was able to figure out that all it was needed to complete this room without taking any damage was just to break the cooling pipe on the left side of the wall. Yes, I'm a retard. Who would have guessed that thinking every once in a while can solve one's problems in life? Aside from this little mishap, the rest of the mission was a breeze. I took no further damage on this map. Corellia? Corellia was a bitch and a half to deal with though. The final reload time wasn't that bad compared to some of the later levels of the game, but the mercs and the layout of this map, they were still annoying as hell. First I had to restart 5 times by the time I got to the little greenhouse car of the train, then 2 more times because of this ridiculous fall damage segment, and those weren't even the biggest bullshit parts of this singular level of the game. This one was. In case you didn't understand what happened here, I don't blame you. It took me a few seconds to realize the level of bullshit in the way I took damage here. And the most annoying part is that in a casual playthrough, I wouldn't give 2 shits about this fleacock size damage, but in this run, I had to reload the previous save because of this stupid shit. Aside from that little hiccup, I only had to reload the previous save game 5 more times on this map, usually due to me being either an idiot or just simply unlucky. And with a nice lightsaber stab to the balls of the last Sith wannabe of the level, Corellia was done. Bakura was next, and oh man, if Corellia was a bitch, then this was the madam of the whorehouse. I don't know why and how, but this mission was the most reload heavy of all the tier 1 missions. I got hit so many times due to me being reckless that it wasn't even funny at the end. 26 reloads, that was my statistics in the end of the level. At the beginning of the level I noticed something though. Do you see where Jaden was waiting for Kyle? lying next to his Z95 headhunter. Isn't he just a bit too casual for someone who's at that very moment seeing this? I mean, what the hell, Jaden? And your biggest problem is Kyle not appearing? That dark side ending is getting more and more legit in moments like this one. But I wasn't like Jaden. I paid my respect to the dead. I did by carefully force pushing their bodies down to the abyss, like I'd like to think they would have wanted me to. I got one step closer to enlightenment that day. After the holy Bakuran burial rituals came the funeral feast, and the main course was my sanity with a nice bit of ass pounding as a side dish. Let's just say, the guests had a blast during the party. That was the artistic process of me going completely nuts. Just by the time I got to the room with the stormtrooper with the heavy repeater, I already died, quote unquote died, 5 times. And when I finally got through that room, I got fucked in the ass by a freaking door. Yeah, a door. I mean, look at that damage. I have to stop here for a second. Yes, you guys see it right. I had 58 shields at this moment, and first I didn't even realize why. And I considered restarting the whole map from the beginning, but then I realized that by activating shield rechargers I can actually raise my shields above the base 50 I start all levels with on Jedi Master difficulty. I decided that it didn't matter since I was still able to track if I was taking damage, so I just continued the level with 58 shields and finished it later on with 58 shields. I got a bit anxious at the fiery room with all the guys' pipe leaks, but thanks to my sick gaming skills I got through it on my first try without taking any damage. The rest of the level went as well as you guys would probably guess. I got down some Imperials, gave 3 vasectomies to some others, and tried to push an ARP something unit down into the abyss to all the dead bodies I pushed down earlier. It worked, I had a good laugh, and then I died some more times, but in the end I got to my ship and finally left Bakura behind once and for all. It was time for the first big boy mission of Jaden, Hoth. It started out rather well. I hopped on one of the Tauntauns and started slashing. I almost got through the first batch of stormtroopers without any damage, but the very last guy of the group smoked me before I was able to kill him. So I ditched the Tauntaun and took care of them on foot. Even this way it was a pain in the ass. I died 5 or 6 times during this part only, and I already knew that this mission was going to be fun. At one part I got so pissed with getting hit that I assigned the quick save quick reload functions to the side buttons of my mouse so that I could do both in a second's notice and would not need to reach for the function keys all the time, baking the tempo of my gameplay and further strengthening my ever-growing carpal tunnel syndrome. I played around with the Wampa in the cave, got smacked, accidentally made a horribly timed quick save right when it touched me, had to restart the whole level again, got pissed, regained my composure, took out the snowtroopers once more, now with less reloads, and sniped that Wampa out of existence the next time, without it ever laying a hand on me. When I got out of that damned cave, I sliced the snow cones next to the exit of the cave, and so did I the probe door that was hovering near the old Echo Base entrance. It was less of a challenge than I expected it to be. I continued making my way into the snowy wastelands, took out some more snow cones, baked an AT-ST without getting hit even once. Here I made a hard save because I did not want to restart the entire level because of poorly timed quick save ever again. I'll give you a hint, it happened on a later level unfortunately. Nothing particularly interesting happened until the next outside section of the level. I had to reload at least a dozen times indoors, but I persevered and reached the exit of the base without any real difficulty. I had to reload 3 times by using the evap turret because I couldn't defend myself from the blaster shots while using it. But the 4th time, I successfully took out all the snowtroopers without them blasting my little ass into oblivion. With around 10 to 12 reloads and a shit ton of name calling and a lot of mentions of all the mothers of all the snowtroopers in this part of the level, I finally got to the makeshift entrance of Echo Base, and with that, the first part of Hoth was finally over. Before I went into the depths of my insanity, and Echo Base too, I decided to destroy the evap turret the Imperials installed on top of the downed AT-80 just out of pure spite. But that thing, it didn't even take a single sliver of damage from my lightsaber throws, so I just admitted my defeat and went on my merry way. After entering Echo Base, I threw a surprise party / grenade at the first 3 snowtroopers I saw, then another one at the second 4. I got blasted a few times here, but nothing serious happened. In general, this second part of Hoth was far easier than the first one. Maybe there were less enemies, or the confined nature of Echo Base gave more places to cover and cower, who knows. Some lightsaber swings here and some grenades there, and I was mostly done with the place. There were some hiccups here and there, but yet again nothing serious. The Sith wannabe at the end of the level before the Wampa took 2 tries, but only because I wanted to try some fancy saber moves, which I quickly abandoned the idea of, so the next time I just yeeted his balls with my lightsaber and went on to face the Wampa eating the Tauntaun in the next room. I'll be honest with you guys, I had no intention of fighting the Wampa, so I just Palpatined his ass and went on to face Yalara. I took the careful approach with her, after all she is the first boss of the game. Even though I was really trying to keep my distance from her, it took 9 resets to finally get enough good hits in for her to go down. This boss fight was a tiny taste of the battles to come, and I haven't even realized it by then. I did it later on, don't worry. My ass was red as the glowing sun and my hands were wet as a freaking ocean by the end of this game. After kicking Yalara's ass, consensually of course, I do not wish to be cancelled, I picked the fast style as my additional lightsaber style because at that level of the game I considered firearm using enemies to be my main concern, and fast style has a higher parry rate as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong. At that point it seemed like a sensible choice. I choose Narkrita as my first tier 2 mission. And remember when I said that there was a mission I had to restart because of an accidental quick save? Yeah, this was the one. After climbing through the vents and descending upon the local mercs like an angel of death, I freed the first group of prisoners from the Rancor, and then I cleared the path for them to the Raven's Claw. I took my time to kill the Rancor so that the next time it respawned, it wasn't in the way for the next group of prisoners to free. It took some time and a lot of saber throws, but it was worth it in the end. Freeing the next 2 group of prisoners was easy. I took out the guards in the bedding boxes, I played Ring Around the Roses with the next Rancor, led both groups to safety, and then I fucked up. Big time. When I went on to freeing the 4th group of prisoners, I made a really poorly timed quick save right after I was shot by the sniper that was hiding behind a counter on the way to the 4th bedding booth. Right after getting fucking nailed by that goddamn Rodian. 9 resets on this level so far for nothing. Oh well. So I restarted the entire level, was more careful this time. The 2 Trandoshans in the elevator room and the Grands at the bar gave me a few resets, but aside from that, I got to the same part I was before the restart, without a hitch. Oh, and I also killed the Chiz bartender out of spite. Yeah, a bastard I was that day. I made a hard save this time, before facing down the same sniper guy. It wasn't that complicated at the end to take care of him. I literally threw 1 grenade into his booth and he was as good as dead. This time I changed up the order of saving the 4 groups of prisoners, and I left the one I usually save for the second time for the last now. Why am I telling you that? Because the assholes gave me a good scare when they went for the other f***ing way than they did the last time, and when I tried to lure the Rancor away from them, because of their idiocy I almost led it to them. I mean, just watch this shit. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I managed to save their sorry asses too, and this nightmare that was Narkrita was finally over. I went on to Zonju 5 with the thought that this was going to be a pain in the ass since I cannot deflect blaster shots effectively from a speeder bike, but in the end I only had to reset 5 times. The key to victory was to simply boost at the right times, right when the enemy bikers appeared, and leave them behind as quickly as possible. A little dodging and cutting down anyone who got too close didn't hurt either. Although some of my funniest and most epic deaths were on this level. I also skillfully killed 3 bikers without getting hit near the building in the middle of the mission. Aside from these things, nothing really interesting happened during this mission, so moving on. Next up was none other than the beautiful capital of the Star Wars galaxy, Coruscant. On this level I came face to face with my former nemesis, the Sniper Rodians. These little cucks and the yearly subscription aimbots were the bane of my existence on large open space maps like this one. Most of my resets in the first part of the mission happened because of these guys, but one way or the other, I managed to take them out one by one without getting shot in the end. After that I took out some mercs, pushed the grenade away from myself the last second, fight some droids, and jumped my way to the end of the level where I took out the 4 droids in that guy's office whose name I forgot. That was the end of this level. Next up was Krildor and yeah, something was missing. I don't know why, probably because of the widescreen configuration file I created to play the game in 1080p, but I'm not 100% sure that that was the reason. Well, it didn't affect the gameplay or the challenge itself, so I just played the rest of the level like this. Now this level was a pain in the ass. It felt like this map was designed to grind my gears with all the stupid shit that can damage you in idiotic ways. The Jetpack Troopers, the Shotgun Troopers, the heights. I shit you not, the combination of these three things caused me more rage than some of the Sith wannabes on later levels of the game. This singular part here alone took me 4 resets to figure out how to descend safely without taking any damage. And then came another goddamn Jetpack Trooper, which nailed me another 5 times before I was able to take him down with a sweet looking jump attack, so that was nice at least. After destroying the power generator of the station, I was able to lure 2 Jetpack Troopers into a doorway, where they weren't able to fly away, and I was able to cut them down as easily as never before and never again, sadly. And it only took me 3 resets to get them into this vulnerable position, so I guess it was worth it in the end. I'll be honest with you, aside from the 26 resets on this mission, it was rather boring for me. I just pushed every single stormtrooper that got in my way off the cliff into the abyss, and while it was funny in the beginning, it got really old really quickly. It was all destroy this, deactivate that, and while this game is certainly full of interesting and exciting missions, this one just wasn't one of them. I mostly just sprinted through it while pushing every enemy down from every ledge I was able to. Oh yeah, and I also accidentally activated the shield recharger here too, so don't be surprised on me having 54 shield points. I managed to get through this level without getting any damage, and that's what matters. The Soon was next, and this was everything that Krildor wasn't. It was a fun mission design, annoying but memorable boss fight, and just generally a great map layout. Even though I had to reset 8 times during the level and 4 additional times during the boss fight, I had a lot of fun during this mission, jumping around like a madman, shooting everyone with every single gun at my disposal, while evading their shots like a pro gamer, from which I'm the farthest thing from in existence. And even though I got shot several times, I wasn't bored for a single second. Maybe I'm just bad with the lightsaber and enjoyed using guns for a change. And this map even let us control an AT-ST even if it wasn't necessary for completing the mission. I know that I keep repeating myself, but I cannot express just how much nostalgia and fun I had during this level. This was always one of my favorites. Oh, and I also used the shield recharger during this level too, but all it did was to raise my shield level from 50 to 100. I was still able to track if I was taking damage, so it didn't really matter at the end. But if you want proof that I did it, then I can upload my playthrough of this level if you guys want me to. That goes for any previous levels too, of course. Little note here, later while watching speedrunners completing this mission in less than 25 minutes, which is insane and awesome at the same time, I realized that I could have beaten the boss guy much easier than the way I did, by activating Force Sense at the beginning of the fight and just blasting his ass with an E11 rifle I got first on the level. Check out Dr. Mewington's World Record Jedi Academy speedrun or Covered Muffin's 2016 SGDQ or 2018 AGDQ runs to see what I'm talking about. What they are doing with this game is just completely nuts in the most wholesome way possible. Now that the Tier 2 missions were all complete, it was time for the second of the big boy missions of Jedi Academy, Vijun. I haven't really spoken about my chosen Force skills up until this point, but this was the state of my Force powers before the Vijun mission. As you can see it, I mostly invested in Mind Trick because I thought that it will be beneficial later on, which, after all the Sith wannabes started to appear more and more often, turned out to be a waste of Force points. I also invested in Force Lightning for, well, obvious reasons, and Force Protection for this very map. I know what you think now, oh, he probably chose that so he can cheat and stuff. I assure you, I did not pick this Force power to negate any damage that the enemy could cause me if I was being careless. I choose Force Protection because otherwise it would have been impossible to get through the acidic rain of Vijun without taking any damage. Aside from that, I never used Force Protection in any other parts of the run, and even if I accidentally pressed the assigned function key that activated it, I immediately reloaded the previous same like if I took damage, so just trust me on this one, guys. Anyway, back to the picturesque acidic hellscape that is Vijun. Aside from the face-melting rain, the thick troopers were the biggest obstacle in the first part of the mission. After getting hit 2 times, I offed the first one I encountered with my EMP gun, then the second one with a quick volley of lightsaber strikes. And I dealt with the rest of them on the level by using their own gun against them. I found that to be the most effective way of taking them out from long range without them ever getting a chance to blast my ass into oblivion with their Stoker concussion rifles. The first part of Vijun was not as hard as I expected it to be. Sure, I had to reset 20 times at least, but the problematic parts were few and far between. The first room with the stormtroopers and the 2 officers gave me some trouble, mostly because I charged in like a retard over and over again, not learning from my mistakes, but after a few good force pushes and Kyle doing most of the work, I made it through. Kyle and I offed some stormtroopers and some big boys, and then Kyle masterfully force-pulled the stormtrooper at me so hard that he almost killed me in the process, but things were okay in the end. He was the perfect bullet sponge, so I just forgave him for doing that. I ran from cover to cover, hiding from the acidic rain, deactivated some further thick troopers, and made sure to always have a well-paced quick save to load, in case things went sideways, which in this run happened quite frequently. Everything went rather well until I got to this point. I'm not joking, this stupid section alone caused me at least 6 or 7 reloads, depending on if you count the time Kyle pushed me into the acidic river on accident, or intentionally, who knows. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the sitrep can be summarized up as this. When you jump onto the 3rd rock during this little platforming segment, a cutscene starts to play. That's not a problem in itself, of course. The problem is that whenever a cutscene starts, after it ends, whatever force effects you had activated before the cutscene deactivates the moment the scene ends. You can probably guess why that is a huge problem here. The cutscene turned off my force protection while I was standing out in the acidic rain. I seriously considered giving up the challenge right there and then, but I didn't want to let this stupid thing stop me. So, for help, I turned to the people who knew this game the best in the world. Speedrunners. I watched at least half a dozen speedruns until I managed to figure out that it is actually possible to skip a cutscene while it plays, by quick saving the very moment the cutscene starts and quick loading that save right after. If the timing is right, the cutscene starts to play while you remain in control of your character. Of course, the very fact that the cutscene started turned off my force protection no matter if I was still controlling my character or not, but for some reason I wasn't taking any damage from the acidic rain this way. It is probably a game mechanic so that you won't get damage in a cutscene since you are practically defenseless during it. It mattered not to me. It took some trial and error and a lot of swearing, but this way I was able to get through this segment without taking any damage and continue the run with my mental integrity still in one piece. If you're curious how I did it, here's the footage. Funnily enough, the rest of Vijun Part 1 went on without a hitch. I only had to reset 2 times in this room because of the shotgun troops, but aside from this part, the level required no more resets. I took out all the 6th wannabes, even the blue one, without taking any damage, took out the TIE bombers, and with that, the first part of Vijun was done with exactly 1 and 19 more notches on the big saber on my hip. Part 2 of Vijun, Bast Castle, was next, and oh man. If part 1 was the clown, then this part was the entire circus. It didn't start out bad. It took a few resets to get through the first batch of stormtroopers and 6th wannabes, but nothing serious. Then I received the biggest mind of the entire game. I mean, just look at this. This shows what I'm talking about way better than what I could do with words. It took me a while to actually figure out which way we were supposed to go because for some reason I forgot. But eventually I figured it out and we found our way into this air vent, where I was able to witness Kyle's teleportation skills once again. We've reached the energy center, or what's its name, where I played around with pushing Imperials into the dangerous parts of the machine in the middle of the room. I got some pretty neat chain kills in the following rooms, had some trouble finding out which way I was supposed to go once again, but like life in Jurassic Park, I found a way in the end. In the form of an elevator this time. I knew that there was a rocket launcher guy on top of that elevator, and for some reason that scared me so much that it caused me many more resets than it should have. Not the rocket trooper himself, but the fact that I charged at him like a madman every time the elevator reached its destination. I wanted to stop him from firing his gun so badly, and in the process, all the other Imperials in the room shot my ass several times. In the end, with a little help from Kyle, I persevered and took care of all the guys in there and the next room. There was a rocket launcher guy in there too, but he was so stupid that I think he actually killed himself in the process of shooting at me. The jetpack dudes weren't the problem this time. I pushed one of them into the energy beam, and the other one just flew into it himself without any outside help. I overloaded the something energy machine and voila, Vijun Part 2 was complete. I got through the first batch of enemies on Vijun Part 3 without any resets, castrated the following 2 Sith wannabes, and while the third one gave me a little trouble, I just pushed the guy down an elevator shaft and he was done for. I got a sick triple kill on the next batch of stormtroopers with a perfectly timed and placed saber throw, took out the blue Sith wannabe with another one after just one reset, and took out some more stormtroopers with a few more resets under my belt. That's when I came face to face with the first red cloak dark side user of the game, and he made me realize something. Their force lightning? It was going to be a problem. You see, there are only a few ways to protect yourself from lightning utilized by the enemy dark side users. You can evade them, which in confined spaces can be a bit problematic, especially against more advanced users whose lightning can cover an entire corridor easily. You can also interrupt them with force push or other methods, but that isn't really reliable either. Or the best method is just to use force absorption and completely negate any force powers used against you and fill up your own force meter in the meanwhile. I'll give you a hint, later on, this was the option I went with. You might say that it is cheating, but force absorption doesn't actually protect you against any lightsaber or blaster or explosion based attacks, so if you think that, then unfortunately I'll have to disagree with you. Anyways, after only 2 reloads, the red Sith wannabe made a mistake and I was able to take him out with a well-timed saber throw. That's generally how these duels went with more advanced saber users during this run. Me running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to either find or make an opening where I could strike, or at least whittle down the enemy HP a bit by bit. I was terrified of the room with the 2 Sith wannabes overlooking the hangar, but in the end I got the lucky end of the stick and I was able to take out the red one with a quick strike to the balls, and after a bit of jumping around I took out the other one too. I neutralized the following 2 pairs of saber wielders and their lackeys, and the Jet Trooper 2 easily without any resets. Then I came face to face with another red cloak dickhead who now had not 1 but 2 lightsabers. Let's just say that my first encounter with him didn't end really well for me. He offed me so quickly that I didn't even have time to quick load after getting hit for the first time. My second try went much better though. After some close calls with his force lightning and force drain, I was able to get in a good hit when he went for his spinneroo trick, which is possibly the stupidest move in the entire game, and then another one when he threw one of his sabers at me. The droid room took far more tries than it should have, mostly because of me being an idiot and not keeping my distance from the lightsaber wielding droids or my own area of effect EMP shots. But I eventually forced my way through all the clankers in the room. The whole of Vader's statue was rough. It was the first obstacle in the game with saber-wielding enemies that really raised my reset counter. The first but not the last, unfortunately. The very first dual lightsaber guy made me reload at least 7 or 8 times until I was finally able to find an opening in him doing his fidget spinner move, which I used to finally slice him up. His lightning was the biggest problem, and that's when it became clear to me that I'll have to do something about this issue later on. The next red wannabe in the side hole wasn't much easier either. Another half a dozen or more resets later, I forced some lucky saber strikes down his fanny and probably broke his defense or something because he went down like a little bitch in that single scenario. Not in any of the other 6 or 7 times he kicked my ass, just in that one. The Darth Maul wannabe in the room next to the boss fight went much better than the previous duels. Mostly because double-bladed lightsaber users like to spin their blades to taunt their opponents, and if you time your somersault stab attack right, you can catch the end of their taunt animation, where if they don't jump away, they are practically defenseless. And so came the Rosh boss battle, and oh man, this was everything I expected it to be and more. This crybaby bicycle alone made me reset 15 fucking times. Dealing with his lackeys wasn't hard. Dodging this pretentious little f***er while trying to fry his lackey's ass with force lightning was the hard part. It took a lot of resets, a lot of pain and sweat and swearing, but half a dozen lightsaber vasectomies later, the little bitch was down for the count. I wanted to slice off his balls for giving me a hard time, but his Twitch thought saved his sorry ass in the end and they got away. Next up were the tier 3 missions. I'll just skip through most of the Tier 3 missions because this video is already becoming stupid long. I continued the game with a single saber, but all 3 lightsaber styles now in my arsenal. Ord Mantell was up first, and it wasn't that much of a hassle. Our man, the OG Mandalorian, the one and only Boba Fett, didn't give me that much of a trouble. I quickly blew up all 6 weapons caches, and with only 5 resets I defeated Boba, mostly using Force Lightning every time he got close enough. Not an honorable strategy, but it worked as intended. Biss was next, and aside from all the 16 times I got shot, blasted or blown away, it was a cakewalk. Just move slowly, take out the thick troopers and the rocket guy with ranged weapons, and everyone else with either a lightsaber or Force Lightning. Oh, and try avoiding big groups of enemies, because believe me, even at this level of the game, you can only deflect so many blaster shots. And be especially wary of the thick guys in big suits. Those assholes can ruin your day and your no damage run in milliseconds. If you ever want to try out this challenge, just use Force Sense often on this map to see what lurks behind the next corner, and you'll be good. The next mission was Yalara, and everyone who ever played this game knows why this level is a pain in the ass for a no damage run. Well, it is a pain in the ass for several reasons, but let's start with the elephant, or should I say Nogri, in the room. The Nogri and their gas weapons were a bitch and a half to deal with. Just getting anywhere close to whatever they hit with their gas projectiles and you start losing HP in that very moment. My suggestion is to either keep your distance from them and take them on with ranged weapons if possible, which on this map was rarely possible, to be honest. Or just use your force powers to idle kill them as quickly as possible before they can get a shot off, or at least try to interrupt them with force powers like force push or pull, so that you'll be able to slice their ugly faces off later. Aside from this corridor that is currently on the screen, their weapons were manageable. Of course, the Sith wannabes and the Imperials are present here too, but they were the least of my problems. At least this time. Wanna know what was? Was it the Nogri? No. It was this fucking fan room and its goddamn electric ceiling. I tried jumping through this section without touching the ceiling at least a dozen times, but not once was I able to do it without losing some of my shield points. That was unacceptable. In the end, I managed to jump around this section on the little platforms in the corners of the fan room, and from the farthest corner I was able to fly right off onto the end platform without ever touching the ceiling. It was annoying as hell, but in the end manageable. The rest of the mission was nothing special. Kill some Sith wannabes, dodge the gas, blew up the cloaking device, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Most resets from this level came from that goddamn fan room. Aside from that, it was mostly a walk in the park. Next up was Shandrilla, the home planet of Mon Mothma, and man, this mission was almost as annoying as her character is. And not just annoying but deadly as hell too. I shit you not, from all the non-main story missions, aka Hoth, Vijun, Taspir and Korriban, this gave me the most resets of all the side tasks. I had to reload the previous save exactly 35 times during this mission, and not just because I was an unskilled idiot. I mean, I was an unskilled idiot, but that wasn't the only reason I had to reset so much. There are just so many dark side users on this level that it isn't even funny. Sometimes 2 or 3 are so close to each other that it is literally impossible to engage them in one-on-one duels. And not just that, but at least 80% of Sith Sims on this level are of the advanced red variant, usually with either dual-bladed saber staves or double lightsabers, just to put the cherry on top of the cake of pain. Shit, even the casual non-saber wielding enemies were using the most OP weapons they ever do in the game. Literally in the first group of mercs you come across when trying to navigate this agoraphobic dark chasm of death, there is a guy with a Stoker concussion rifle, possibly the most overpowered firearm in the entire game. Not just that, but there is a rocket launcher guy also later on this level. This was the point of the game where I gave up trying to minimize the usage of force powers like force lightning and force absorption. Up until this point, I was trying to use said force powers as scarcely as possible, but not anymore. I was done with limiting myself. I unleashed my full power, I threw down my ankle weights, and I just yeeted myself onto the enemies. And while it wasn't by any means easy or simple, I cannot stress it enough just how much force absorption helped, for example. It was such a relief not having to worry about enemies using force lightning or force drain anymore. And it even protected me from force pushes and pulls, all while recharging my own force levels. It was a godsend blessing. With my quote-unquote new powers, I slowly but surely forced myself through this level, and after a lot of trial and error, I sealed the tomb, and with that, my time in this hellhole was finally over. Tanab was next, and compared to my sufferings in Shandrilla, this was a walk in the park. The mutant rancor cut me once, but I was able to break free without taking any damage. I knew that I just said that I was going to kill every enemy possible during this run, but everyone who ever played this level knows that this is just not the level where you start screwing around with the enemies. And it's not like they survived their time on Tanab either. They all got chewed down by the mutated rancor, and the ones who didn't, I took care of them. Little fun fact here. Did you know that if you shoot the mutated rancor with your EMP gun, it paralyzes it for a few seconds? I just realized it during this run. I lured the rancor onto the huge conveyor belt, dropped the crate, and crushed his ass. And with that, all the Tier 3 missions were completed. The first of the last two main story missions, aka Taspier 3, was next. Our man Kyle received a distress call from the Crybaby Rush, and now we had to go to the beautiful volcanic hellhole that is Taspier 3 to kick his ass, to help him in any way we can. This is my single most favorite map of the entire game. I always enjoy blasting and slashing my way through this level. Especially on the first part of Taspier 3. Sure, I had to reset 22 times on the first part only, but there were no particular parts of this map where those 22 resets got concentrated. They were nicely spread out all throughout the level. The biggest hindrances weren't even the dark side users. Aside from the final Master Sith wannabe on the bridge at the end of the level, the Jet Troopers and the normal Stormtroopers or Imperial officers gave me more resets than the actual saber-wielding enemies or their Force user lackeys. Mostly because I was starting to formulate a sound, nearly foolproof strategy against the Force users of the game at this point, but I just didn't care enough to do so with firearm users, aside from the basic push 'em slash 'em tactics. I usually got reckless with them, and that caused all those possibly unnecessary resets. The two best tactics I found to be working against Jet Troopers is to either force choke them to hold them in one place, then finish them off with a held out lightsaber throw, or just simply use a mind trick to freeze them in one place and then finish them however you fancy. The first method costs a lot of force energy, so if you invested in mind trick throughout the game, I'm suggesting the second method, which is a lot less costly. My strategy for the Sith wannabes of the level was basically the following. For the lesser ones, who usually appear alongside their force using lackeys, I usually just use Force Lightning, quickly take out the lackey, then just simply castrate them with a raw stab. For the more advanced wannabes, you should always activate Force Absorption right before an engagement, because you'll never be safe from their Force Lightning or Force Drain otherwise. After that, just keep looking for openings. For double-bladed staff users, it's best to attack when they're doing their spinning taunt or whatever this move is called. Just wait for the ending of the spinning animation and time your attack so that your lightsaber will make contact at the perfect moment when they finish their taunt animation. For dual-bladed lightsaber users, it's a bit more complicated, but not by much. Whenever they go for their useless spinneroo trick, you can either saber throw their asses or wait for them to nearly finish their spectacular performance and just stick a saber down their throats. Be careful with your timing though. If you attack with a roll stab or any other close quarters move too early, you might find yourself slashed into pieces by the flying rotating lightsaber blades. As for the Master Sith wannabe at the end of the level, well, just throw his ass off the bridge as quickly as you can with Force Choke. These bad boys are just not worth engaging in a duel with if it's avoidable, and at this point, it is. It won't be later on unfortunately, but we'll get there shortly. Oh, and for the thick troopers in the lava lake, just use their own weapon against them. And other explosive like the rocket launcher or grenades if you run out of ammo for the Stoker rifle. You can also try using force speed and force pushing back their projectiles, but it's just stupid and will get you killed. The second part of Taspier 3 was next, and to be honest, it wasn't that much different from the first part. Sure, it was a lot more confined with most of this part being indoors, but there were usually enough environmental hazards to utilize against saber-wielding opponents. And even if there weren't any, you can always just back away from these Darksiders until they make a mistake and then attack with a saber throw or a roll stab. Just take out the Sith wannabes with your saber or your Stoker concussion rifle when they are of the weaker ones, and use the previously mentioned tactics with the red guys. Also, watch out for the rocket trooper on the upper level of the lava room. And if all else fails, you can always throw some baddies off cliffs and high places if nothing else works. The most problematic part of this map was the Master Darkside user in the corridor near the end of the level. Out of the 7 resets Taspiot 3 Part 2 required, this guy was the cause of at least 2. What worked against him in the end was a combination of pure luck and a good old roll stab while he was healing himself. The conveyor belt part made my hands and ass cheeks sweaty as always, but I made it through it with only 1 reset, which happened because of my own stupidity rather than the difficulty of the situation. This map was generally one of the easier ones. That at least until Yalara. This bitch caused me more deaths than the entire second part of Taspiot 3. Her high HP, high parry rate and insane saber tricks kept me completely on the defense 99% of the fight while I slowly lowered her HP bit by bit. I tried every single trick that I saw on YouTube or the ones I just thought would be effective. I'll give you a hint, none of them did jack shit. What worked in the end was keeping my distance, saber throwing whenever she did roll at me, and roll stabbing every time I thought the chances of instant retribution and therefore instant death were lower. Playing Ring Around the Roses also helped a lot, and so did safe scumming, but that's not something that is even need to be said. For most of the fight, I tried using the strong lightsaber form, because as far as I knew it had a higher chance to break Yalara's defense, but in the end I returned to the fast style because, while I did less damage, I was more often able to get in a hit or two with this more agile fighting style. It just suited my hit and run pace style better. AKA I was a freaking coward and I needed to run away after every successful hit faster. This style was also more capable of deflecting Yalara's erratic lightsaber throws than the strong form, so that was also a reason behind my decision. 20 minutes and 17 resets later, I was finally able to deliver the final roll stab on her, and it was glorious. I really freaking love slow-mo at times like this. It was satisfying to finally see that bitch go down. Little did I know of the shitstorm that was slowly but surely descending upon me in the form of the final battle of the game, in the form of the Tavion Ragnos fight. Oh, and for those curious, I choose the spare rush. Out of mercy and compassion? Hell f***ing no. There was just no goddamn chance in hell I was going to face both Jedi and Dark Side users during the final level with me having to reload every time I get hurt. Just the wannabes alone caused me 35 resets, not including the Tavion fight. Korriban Part 1 was next and we're in the endgame now. I always wanted to say that. It might sound ridiculous, but this level wasn't that much harder from the ones before it. Just a whole bunch of Dark Side users, but this time at least I had help. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed teaming up with other Jedi to kick the asses of these Sith wannabes. Needless to say, it was much easier delivering finishing blows when the enemies weren't concentrating on me. Aside from that little help, the tactics were the same as before. Fry the lackeys, give vasectomies to the Sith wannabes, and keep that force absorption up as much as you can, and look for openings on the tougher foes. The huge pillar room, the catacombs, the lava drop, they were all the same as before. Lots of saber wielders, lots of slaying, and lots of resets too, but we don't talk about that here. The fellow Jedi made this level mostly a cakewalk, and no section of the level was hard enough to stand out as anything particularly difficult. I accidentally got killed by one saber staff wielder when I timed my roll stab poorly, but nothing too painful. Well, not painful for me, it probably was for Jaden, but who cares about him anyway. I just cannot express well enough how useful force absorption was during this part of the run. Just look at that shit. I got completely Palpatine there and I didn't take a single sliver of damage. I'm sure that some sick f*** could do this run without force absorption, but I've never said that I was that much of a Chad. While no enemy was particularly difficult during this level, that doesn't mean that they didn't piss me off on some occasions. Just look at this arrogant little f***er.
It's a Jedi! May the Force be with you. I sense you, Jedi. Pitiful Jedi.
He not only killed a fellow Jedi, but he had the audacity to gloat about it. He had what was coming for him. The lava drop and the underground tombs were sweaty and not because of the heat. Confined spaces, a lot of hard to kill enemies, and the fact that every lost health point equals instant death meant that I was in for a good time. The first tomb with the 2 low-level dark side users and their lackeys wasn't that complicated. Fry the lackey, then cut off the nuts of the other 2. The second room with the 3 red Sith wannabes was not easy. It wasn't exactly difficult neither, just time consuming. Because of all the 3 guys attacking me at the same time, the windows to attack each were slim. But with enough jumping around and some well-timed nut stabs, this room was also cleared of Tavion Simpson short notice. I took care of the Sithlings in the chain room next, took out the pillar holding the exit door, rose back to the level of the main chamber, finished the red guys, and then I came face to face with the master darkside user of the level. Our duel was the same as always. A lot of jumping around, slowly whittling down his HP, using every opening possible, of which there aren't that many with master darkside users, then delivering the final finishing blow, all while being extremely careful to always keep up my force absorption and keeping myself away from his saber. Okay guys, I don't know who am I trying to fool here. I just lured the guy over to the hole leading down to the chain room and threw him in with force choke. It wasn't the most honorable way of combat, but it worked, goddammit. And with that, the first part of Korriban was completed. Outside the tomb, the battle between the Jedi and Tavion Sims was already well underway by the time I got there. Me and the Twi'lek Hati double-teamed the first red guy near the beginning of the level, and after a few resets, because of the Darksiders in the valley, I eventually forced myself through their lines. The Master Darksider was a trouble, especially when I tried to face him head-on, which caused me some more resets, but eventually I just gave up and threw the guy into the giant chasm next to us with force choking. Something I should have done the first time to save myself the trouble, but whatever. Funnily enough, the stormtroopers next to the Lambda shuttles actually managed to f me up more times than I expected them to. This little shotgun guy was especially annoying, but he and his friends both got what they deserved in the end. I was dead set on giving the rocket launcher trooper of the level a nice taste of the Stoker rifle, but a fellow Jedi got him before me. At least I had the honor to witness the rare and illustrious performance of Stormtroopers on Ice live on Korriban. It was a truly breathtaking experience that I remember for the rest of my life. Clearing out the foregrounds of the tomb of Mark Aragnos was easy. Just throw everyone you meet into either lava or just simply down from a great height and you're good to go. It was time to face our destiny. Tavion, the greatest Twitch thought on this side of the galaxy, has already begun resurrecting his new sugar daddy, and it was our job to put an end to her evil deeds. The first part of this epic final battle was nothing too difficult. Just dodge the beam of your scepter, protect yourself with force absorption, and try to find every single opening to get in some good hits. The best ways to hit her are to look for the attacks which leave her exposed for a few seconds, like the typical dual saber spinneroo, or the sweeping motions of her beam attacks. Also be careful because the beam attack can sometimes hit you through the stone blocks most would usually use for cover. I also recommend getting the hell away from her every time she goes for her ground slam force attack, because it can send you flying real quickly and painfully away. I recommend using the heavy style for this round with her, especially the overhead forward lunging attack for every opening. I found it to be the most optimal for this phase of the battle. Oh, and do not roll into her saber throw, believe me, it won't work. Moreover, I just generally don't recommend using the good old roll stab for this battle because it will leave you open for her ground slam attack, and most of the times you won't be able to dodge it. This phase was annoying but nothing too serious. The first time I delivered the final blow to her in the first phase, she hit me in the same time, so I had to repeat that. But aside from that little annoyance, this part of our duel made me reset only 11 times. Not too shabby for a final boss fight, right?
Wrong.
What came next surpassed all my expectations for this battle. Holy f***. I got hit so many f***ing times and had to reload so often that I'm not even sure I got the right number at the end because I was just raging during this entire segment. I got so mad with the game at this point that I almost broke my mouse and the pen I used to notch all my resets. This single goddamn phase of the final battle almost cost me the same amount of resets as the entire Taspiel 3 map, Alora excluded, and Korriban combined. I had to reset 63 times. 63 goddamn times. To say that this battle was a BDSM lover's wet dream would be an enormous understatement. Everything about the Ragnos Tavion fight was a pain in the ass. Every single attack of hers as well as her force powers hit like a truck. Not that it would have mattered if they didn't, because one hit was more than enough to f*** me into a reload, and she f***ed me so much that checkpoint movies were nothing compared to what I received during this battle. The tactics used before, yeah, you can forget about those. Strong form overhead attack, good luck with that. Her parry rate is over the f***ing moon and she retaliates so quickly that you won't even have time to reload before she insta-kills your ass. Looking for openings? This bitch is like Sonic the Hedgehog on steroid-fused Chaos Emeralds, constantly on the move, attacking relentlessly without any resemblance of pausing even for a split second. Seriously, 90% of my attacks either ended up with me having to reload the previous save, or just straight up getting murdered by her one-hit KO attacks. Needless to say, constant force absorption here is a must if you don't want to take any damage, because she can easily spam brutal level 3 force lightning and other force powers without stopping even for a moment. Your only chance is to last long enough to get in enough lucky hits to deplete her HP, lucky moments like her saber dropping after deflecting her saber throw, or trying to stab her when she goes for a healing sword raising but that's it. And neither of those two methods are foolproof. Good luck being close enough and fast enough to actually hit her while her sword is on the ground from deflecting it. Oh, and if you accidentally lock blades with her, just reload the save. You'll just save your own time. The only saving grace of this battle is that her force attacks are so brutal and so powerful that if you have force absorption on when she attacks you with them, they pretty much instantly recharge your force levels. So you could theoretically spam force lightning while in force absorption until you fry her ass into oblivion. Of course, me being me, I wanted to deal my finishing blow with my lightsaber. Just how well do you think that went for me? It didn't exactly help my reset counter either that I almost locked myself in horribly timed quick saves more than a few times and had to reload half a dozen times on each occasion until I was able to get out of those poorly timed quick saves without taking any damage. Using force speed while she used her saber throw and trying to catch her off guard didn't work either, because she had reflexes like f***ing Neo from the Matrix. At one point I got so despaired that I actually tried to shoot the bitch with a pistol. Yeah, I don't really know what was going through my head in those moments neither. I'm serious with you guys, there isn't really any strategies I can recommend here. This battle is just basically waiting for your opponent to make a mistake and utilizing those microscopic cracks in her defense to deliver a single blow each time until her HP is finally depleted. And that's what I did. I went for the Obi-Wan tactic. I bided my time until I was able to strike. That moment came when she went for her healing sword raise, in which moment I was able to get a good 3 or 4 overhead heavy swings in on her and retreat before getting a retaliatory ass kicking. For like the 50th time in the last 30 minutes. I don't know if the game has a timer after which it lowers the difficulty or if I just got incredibly lucky, but after that I was able to get in some more good hits. A roll step here, heavy sideswipe there, I was even able to get out of a saber lock without any damage. I made a hard save at this point because I did not want to lose all my progress with her. It wasn't needed in the end, but it gave me a peace of mind anyway. After a while I started to dodge like a true Jedi, and for some seconds I even felt that I was putting pressure on Tavion. It probably wasn't the case, but it felt like that, and that feeling gave me strength. The end of the battle was getting closer and closer by the second. Hit after hit, reset after reset, bit by bit, I inched closer and closer to victory. At this point I started to combine force lightning with heavy saber attacks to damage her on multiple fronts. It kinda worked, but I still wanted to finish the fight with the swing of my lightsaber. Of course I died a few more times and had to reset on like a dozen or two more occasions, but every death and every defeat was one step towards triumph. I switched to the fast form at this point mainly because I felt that there wasn't much left of Tavion's health, and I wanted to finish the battle as quickly as possible at this point. In the end, it turned out to be a sound strategy, and her HP was seconds away from reaching 0. A few more roll stabs, some quick but devastating flurries of lightsaber strikes, an instinctively made quick form sideswipe, and Tavion/Marco Ragnos was finally defeated. Good 30 minutes and 63 resets, but the deed was done. The disciples of Ragnos were defeated, Luke and Kyle congratulated me on defeating Tavion, and my struggles were over, and the challenge was completed. So to answer the title or question, yes, you can beat Jedi Knight III Jedi Academy without taking any damage, and so did I. In the end, my reset counter was 478, and I recorded 10 hours, 1 minute and 38 seconds of footage to make this video. It was a wild run, but to be honest, in the end I think it was worth it. I'd like to thank Raven Software for developing this game and LucasArts for publishing it. I'd also like to thank you, my dear viewers, for watching this video and putting up with my horrible accent and horrible pronunciation. I put a lot of work into this project, and if you found it enjoyable, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this video a like, or maybe even subscribe to my channel for other possible future challenges like this one. I'd also be really grateful if you could tell me in the comment section if you didn't like something or if you have preferred something differently. Any constructive criticism is welcome and appreciated. Once again, thank you for watching, have a beautiful day. Goodbye fellows, see you all next time.